We are hours away from the start of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, and we're now just learning who is set to be there and who is not. President Vladimir Putin, not listed among the delegation attending the meeting in Turkey on Thursday. The Kremlin says President Putin's senior aide, Vladimir Medinsky, will lead the Russian side instead. Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he would only participate himself if his Russian counterpart attended. Just a few hours ago, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Turkey. Two White House officials tell CNN President Trump is not planning to attend the talks either, even though he has said previously he would have been open to it. James Stavridis is a senior military analyst, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, and he joins me now. Good to have you, sir.
Great to be with you, Jim.
So I wonder, without the principles, and by the way, I should note, you know this better than me, to begin peace talks without the bosses there, as it were, is not unusual. Usually start at a lower level. But do you have expectations for these talks to be substantial?
No, but they are a start. And let's look at what both sides want here, Jim. Something you and I have discussed. I think on the Russian side, what they truly, deeply, madly want is no access to NATO for Ukraine. Secondly, they desperately want to get out from under sanctions. And thirdly, Putin wants absolute, guaranteed, stamped deed property for the 20% of Ukraine he's already invaded and conquered. Yeah. That's the Russian side. On the Ukrainian side, Volodymyr Zelensky correctly wants some kind of security guarantee so that Putin doesn't invade again. What he's hoping for are European, not NATO, but European, French, British, Nordic, potentially Baltic troops on the ground in Ukraine, kind of a tripwire. Number two, he wants a path to the European Union. He knows NATO is beyond his scope at the moment. And then number three, what Volodymyr Zelensky wants is that he can sail on democratically with the 80% of Ukraine that remains. Yes. I think those are not compatible positions to get there.
The trouble, I suppose, or one warning sign, right, is that just to get to a 30-day ceasefire has proved impossible. Ukraine signed on, as President Trump demanded. President Putin has not. Russia has not. And Trump has said his patience is running thin with Putin. I wonder, do you see Trump as ready to impose real costs on Russia, real sanctions, if Putin continues to defy those demands?
I do. And if you saw that wonderful photo of the members of, if you will, the big four militarily in Europe, UK, France, Poland, you saw them kind of all, Germany, of course, all around the table listening to a conversation with Donald Trump. I think with the Europeans here and Trump over here, they are ready to put the next level of sanctions on Russia. As you know, Jim, those would include secondary sanctions. In other words, if you do business with the Kremlin, wherever you are, India, China, wherever, you cannot do business with the West. That would be a big deal. I think the West is ready to impose that to include Donald Trump.
So that's quite a change from the last time we spoke in the wake of that infamous Oval Office meeting in which Donald Trump berated the Ukrainian president and seemed quite comfortable applying pressure to Ukraine, including removing intelligence sharing, that he was not willing to put on Putin. But you see a U.S. president that has changed his view and is ready to, in effect, toughen up, I suppose, for Ukraine?
Yeah, it should be no surprise to any of us when Donald Trump changes his view. He changes constantly. That's part of the problem, but maybe it's part of his approach. At the end of the day, I think the question is, what's changed? Number one, a big strategic minerals deal, which, you know, our president loves deals between the U.S. and Ukraine. Number two, it's just frustration with Vladimir Putin, who continues to kind of, American term here, play rope-a-dope, just bouncing off the ropes of the boxing ring. And I think number three, Europe has really come together, Jim, in a way that neither you nor I have seen in our lifetimes. If that continues, that's big casino in favor of Ukraine. When you put all that together, I think the U.S. is ready to be part of that. Let's hope so, as opposed to continuing to kind of placate Vladimir Putin.
Okay, final question then before we go. What's your best read of how Vladimir Putin reacts to all of this? Does he say, hey, the table has changed, I got to deal a new hand, or does he dig in and say, I'm not ready to back down?
I'm going to go with door number one. I think Putin is someone who's ultimately a pragmatic. This idea that, he wants Ukraine back because of this mystic vision of Russia is not. Putin wants Ukraine for the good old-fashioned reason. He wants to conquer it. It's full of 40 million people, a lot of resources. He, at this point, I think, will be ready to settle for 20%. That's the best deal he's going to get. That's the front that the West needs to present as these talks unfold.
James Stavridis, I know you'll continue to watch this closely. Appreciate having you on.
You bet, Jim.